Noni Madueke's move across London to Arsenal may have raised a few eyebrows, but we should have seen this coming. Mikel Arteta, after both games against Chelsea last season, doubled down on his admiration for their attack. And although you're free to argue his claim that Chelsea are the best attack in the league, for Mikel, this wasn't hyperbole. He was convinced. But it's why he was convinced that I'm intrigued in. And that's where Madueke comes in. Everything in this quote is about how Chelsea can go from back to front in seconds, how they threaten in bigger spaces. It's interesting too that these are often Arsenal's duller points in attacks. Breaking fast, yes, but also that sense of urgency, a word we're going to come back to with Madueke. Welcome back to the Harvey Gratian YouTube channel. I'm so glad you found us or are joining us once again. So, if Madueke's signing shouldn't have taken us as off guard as it did, it's time to scout Madueke in detail, focusing on what has made both Mikel and Andrea Berta so confident in the deal, where Madueke can refine his game, how do we forecast his role from a tactical perspective, is this chiefly a Saka backup with more versatility elsewhere, or are there other genuine templates as options? And then finally, I'm going to give my thoughts on the deal as a whole, because for me, purely as a player with no strings attached, there can be few reservations about Madueke's talent. There's a lot to get on with, and I want to start by circling back round, looking at how Madueke is all about immediacy in his actions, about toggling the speed or the tempo of an attack much, much higher. As normal, my research for Madueke didn't start and end with his time at Chelsea, and the urgency, the running, the opportunism that defines Madueke's game was on show at PSV too. Look how he gets into stride straight away. He's best when he's driving with those lively, rangy, long legs that can carry a team on the up with him. With this momentum, look how he explodes in between defenders without really having to shift his body one way or the other at all. He combines this with a deliberately heavier touch and a control of the finishing moment that he can definitely develop further now. If we're making comparisons, Eze, I think, has a drift and a fluency to his dribble that forces defenders to backtrack straight away. It makes it hard for a defensive team to squeeze the pitch. Madueke creates the same effect, but everything feels more forceful, more surging, and the carry numbers support this in terms of progressive distance, the start and end points to his carries, which often finish in a shot or a goal, but also how Madueke only needs the smallest invitation or window of space to try and make something happen. And look how snappy and subtle some of these changes in direction are when he's travelling at real speed, and how he can modulate his angle depending on where gaps appear. If these are examples of what Madueke can do with open ground ahead of him, I wanted to look at what he does when he's initially spun the other way, his back to goal, when he isn't the one moving the ball forward. The intention here stays the same. If a fullback is slightly late arriving on the scene, Madueke's kind of dynamism and explosiveness on the reception is pretty hard to contain, but if he is more pinned and the picture more settled, he trusts that his burst with a give and go, partnering I think with a real hunger to his off-ball runs, make him just as difficult to contain. I think there's the much more repeatable action when he's on the left-hand side, which is driving down to the byline, of course, but those changes in direction and the small gaps to duck into mean that if the space does open up on the inside from that left-hand side, he'll take it, he'll grab it, particularly because he likes shifting quickly between his feet, using both feet on the dribble, which I think is important. In this example, yes, you may point towards the opponent and the physical matchups here, but Madueke's injection that he gives you now from the right wing, as well as that threat in behind with the running power and the personality, the temperament to make something happen. There's also the 1v1 element in this example before he sets up Ollie Watkins, which I'm going to attack quite nerdily now, if that's okay, as to what makes Madueke so effective and able to go again and again in these 1v1 duels. It's a term I've used before, and it's about how you can tag a defender along with you. If this gets labelled as over-analysis, I don't mind, because I'm not saying Madueke is the best dribbler to ever grace the sport. but it's just these little details that I love talking about, and hopefully you guys enjoy listening to. The ball breaks here on the edge of the box for Chelsea. Madueke is found swiftly and takes the ball on his weaker right foot, which is crucial here for me, because if he were to take it on his stronger left foot like most people would be inclined to do, he'd be much narrower, closed off, and it's harder to explode away with the power he does from Nwaneri, because he'd have to take another touch with his left instead of this going bang bang right then left foot. Nwaneri knows this too, so gives Madueke that kind of bubble that he always seems to operate in, and it's why he manages to get such a high quantity of touches and shots in the box. This sequence here ends for a cutback and a really good opportunity for Cole Palmer. I called this tagging the defender along, which is basically about the fluency and the deception to your touches. I'll give you some examples. Look how Madueke sort of goads the ball and the defender on his back foot. He adds in a couple of feints and chops, which means he doesn't always have to beat his man and can deliver a cross from that bubble, that space he's created for himself instead. Here the defender actually tries to cheat Madueke before his burst down the line, but after a quick shift inside, a rapidity to his touches and a placed effort into the corner, Madueke has worked an angle and a finish. He feels in control of these situations, and that's particularly when he's on the right hand side. It's not just his ability to stop-start dribble, but look how he continually adjusts his angle of approach against Huijsen here, forcing him to change his footing and catching Huijsen off guard with a knock and a run. There's a real deliberateness on show, which we see here too, as he invites the fullback to get closer, which creates that zone to carry into. On the left wing, of course, things are different. The down-the-line option, as I've said, is the more repeatable action. He has that ability to duck inside, but it can be more frantic. It's harder to stop his own momentum that he creates. And that's not necessarily a criticism, because look here how he still manages to tag Alexander-Arnold along with his back foot, almost lulling the defender to move in time with it. That's sort of what I'm getting at here. Before then, Madueke shifts his weight and the ball onto his right foot. So we've covered Madueke's temperament, his driving carries forward, his 1v1s and his separation, but I want to finish this section more with his sort of ball striking, whether that be his goals or his creative passing. On lots of these sequences that I've shown, we've seen how Madueke is able to generate lots of space and shots, yes, and overall I actually think his finishing game is better than his XG performance suggests. But we'll tackle the room for improvement in just a second. With what we've described already, I think you can already gain a sense of that kind of golf club quality to Madueke's legs and his striking, which allow him to be this decisive in and around the box, take his touches and his shots early, move to his right foot and blast goals in at the near post. And that weak foot striking is something I've really tried to find a larger sample of coming in from the left-hand side for obvious reasons. And I have cause, I think, to be quietly optimistic. This strike is in more of those zone 14 spots, and it's clean and well directed. You can see how once he gets going, it's harder for him to slow himself down, and he needs time and space as well to prep for the shots when he's coming off the left-hand side. But he can definitely strike it with both feet. He has the ability to mix it up and go far or near post, use his instep or his laces. Creatively, I think he's much less of a passer, Madueke, but from the touchline on the right hand side, he's definitely got the whip with those golf club legs that make crosses on a dime like this seem far too effortless at times. He uses half space runners intelligently and readily, but in terms of those cuter little slip balls or weighted threads in behind, I think for now at least, that needs to come elsewhere in the market for Arsenal. This is where we start to look at Madueke's development. His shots can be rushed, and I think with how far he's actually striking the ball away from him at points, he can bobble his efforts or scuff the ball. His final actions when he springs to the byline can lack a little bit of nuance at times, and his crossing, particularly from the left, can be inconsistent and overhit. Again, probably because of the pace he's going at. It's one of the main appealing qualities someone like a Gyökeres has, that Madueke-esque endurance and intensity in the carry or the run before a powerful, well-placed shot. Madueke doesn't always cash in on this like Gyökeres does, if that makes sense, despite having all the endurance and intensity for that. Sometimes he simply swings too hard at the ball. Sometimes he can't stop his own momentum or is off balance. But as I said, in terms of maybe looking at potential downsides to the deal, it's more, I think, for me, talk about the overall package, the deal side of things, which we will come to, but after we look at the tactics board a little bit more closely. This is going to focus chiefly on Noni as a left wing for us, and I will say now that as a left wing, I don't think he has all the details to his game out here as he does on the right wing. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that if he can wander in field, carry powerfully and shoot with his left foot like he can on the right, he's going to be a much more potent and multi-dimensional threat than when he's firing shots off his right foot. But he is a completely different type of winger than the ones we have on the left wing. One of the biggest pros I see to the signing from a tactics point of view, and the thought processes, I guess, that I can get behind, is how Madueke suits our current left-back crop. Our full-back roles, as we all know, demand the player to be comfortable high and low, inside and outside, in those constantly revolving sort of triangles or boxes. It's nothing new that they are much more encompassing than a straightforward overlap, for example, which is, incidentally, a style or a profile that, particularly with an Eze or Rodrigo signing, we may still have to outsource. However, with Madueke, he takes that need to stretch play, whether it be in behind or on the outside. He takes that need to offer width, that running power on the outside, that strong footedness on our left hand side. He takes that up, and for Myles and for Calafiori, that means there's more of an emphasis on them taking up these higher, narrower pockets inside. Then, if Madueke does duck and drive through these more central zones, that's when you keep these rotations, and I can see Calafiori getting a dozen or so shooting opportunities by these harder, later arrivals off the shoulder, feeding off the reactions and the jumps Madueke forces from the defence, and likewise maybe an Ødegaard or a Nwaneri shooting off the end of his carries in these sort of zone 14 areas. Calafiori, though, returning to him, is someone who it's really easy to strike up a relationship with. We've missed out, I think, on Calafiori's first timers and some of his gives and goes with Martinelli this season. And there's some potential, I think, for some really nice chaos between him and Madueke, because even if this might be an action we see quite often from Madueke on the left, him trying to accelerate and then passing angles, they may be jumped on or closed down, he might lose the ball. As a team, we as Arsenal fans, I think, need to be okay with actually losing the ball more, if that makes sense, to ignite those counter-pressing sequences where regains can become really dangerous. And Madueke, from all accounts that I've seen, has really great potential in terms of intensity in his off-ball work. I see a really nice player and profile for Mikel to work with in that department. Let's look at Lewis-Skelly, though, who can be just as, if not more effective alongside Madueke for me. If Noni is at his hardest to contain when he's running at you 1v1, with wind in his sails already, then the way I think Myles forces collapses when he receives in the pivot, spins and motors, partner that with kind of the slick, speedy left-footed access to Madueke, we could generate a lot of these sequences where we're arriving into the final third with Madueke carrying the ball at his man with that wind in his sails. It also might be our benefit, therefore, to hold the ball a bit longer in the middle third of the pitch, keep that space for Madueke to run off the ball into, or enact a give and go from a first-time release from someone like a Zubimendi. How does this pair with Victor Gyökeres, though? And it looks like Gyökeres will be that centre-forward that Arsenal go out and buy. Someone in Gyökeres who likes to drift left himself. It probably raises the need even more for an Eze and or a Rodrigo, whose superpowers come with that freedom to move centrally. Madueke is a goal-hungry winger. He loves to probe that space in between the fullback and the centre-back. He loves to drive on the inside, but he is more naturally going to hang out on the touchline more often. I've spoken about where Gyökeres falls down and where he can actually actively improve in the air and heading. And I think with the template that Madueke brings with those drives to the byline, the volume of his shots, it means that Gyökeres becomes more of your hunter for rebounds, ricochets in a crowded box, or the more simpler headed goals on the end of a systematic move, not really so much about leaping and making it yours, where he probably has more limitations in his game. Let's use this transition though to talk about the deal as a whole, because with Madueke and with Gyökeres as a pair of attackers, yes, there's an injection of players who can run and carry over longer distances time and time again, players who can never run out of momentum or juice for the final action. There's a real uptick, I think, in our angles and how we create shots, and by extension, how much we shoot, because remember what I've maintained throughout the season, it's not about actually how well we shoot, but how often we allow ourselves to do that. There's also the factor of, if you add in Zubimendi to the mix, a real emphasis in the tempo that we play in this market so far, and the players who look to use their first touches proactively, with Zubimendi's quick releases, Madueke's give and goes, Gyökeres's quick rips. But the front line still lacks some decisive passing for me, more ideas, whether that be in some clever flicks, some final balls, or reliable whipped crossing, which Madueke at the moment only has from right-hand-sided zones. I want more than one attacker, ideally, but if it is a straight shootout, does this actually place Eze above a Rodrigo in the list? Just a question, just putting it out there. And here we turn to Madueke as well as a package. As I hope I've shown, about the talent, I don't have too many concerns, but if you want to criticise the deal for one or more reasons, about the timing of the move, meaning his readiness to translate now, because ultimately we are chasing converting his XG and underlying numbers into real output. Or if you want to have reservations about the prioritisation of arguably a Saka backup who is a really nice different left wing option, as opposed to a left wing who can be a backup to Saka, if that makes sense. These are all fair. I think broadly, £50 million for Madueke is not a place to take issue with. But I think issues start to come in when it's £50 million for Madueke, who brings in no particular order an urgency to our attack, both on and off ball, the ability to carry us up the pitch with him, Saka's reliability 1v1, and how he sort of tags defenders along, with a bit of Jesus chaos mixed in there, how much Madueke shoots. It's that it's 50 million for this, and I don't know yet how much room he's going to have with our current squad building plans to allow this to flourish, to allow a very good player to become a potentially exceptional one. I'm certain another attacker comes through the door in this window, but it's just with the maverick nature of this deal, which is a positive thing, it's whether we require another one on top of that. And for the price, I said, I think it will be a Rodrigo or Eze situation, and any other attacking signings will depend on an exit. I love, though, Madueke as a player. Once again, I hope this video has shown you why you should be really excited for this incoming, and I think reservations again about the deal are ones of projection and Madueke's trajectory, and how that weighs up to current squad needs and the rest of the window. Because this is very much an Arteta and a Berta bet that Madueke is ready to explode now. I love the talent for our attack, I love the change in temperament for our attack, and anyone who has been driven to insults or even worse personal attacks, just know that you are going against not only everything the club has been trying to build over the past few years, that connection with the supporters, Arsenal as a family and a so-called classy one, but you've also just dropped to the lowest of the low as a human. The fantastic thing is that Noni seems ready for the challenge, unfazed by it all. And who knows, maybe there are some surprises we haven't foreseen yet. Maybe it's not just about Saka depth. Maybe it's about Saka and Madueke. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.